Hello and welcome to the complete character guide for Lidia Sobieska. This new character is based on fast pressure and the huge rewards she gets from it. It's very momentum based. The longer she can keep running setups on you, the worse it's going to get. So we're going to discuss the character from the point of view of how to play her, general gameplay ideas, her moveset, punisher, stances, etc. So you see how it works out and you see what the opportunities are that you need to take advantage of, as well as when you fight Lidia, what you do to stop her from seizing those opportunities defensively. It's a character that's not necessarily all or nothing, but the longer she gets to go, the more she leans towards that all, and it's up to opponents to figure out how to stop the rampage. As always, I like to start with punishment. It's one of the core fundamentals of Tekken, blocking and punishing. If your opponent makes a mistake, you need to capitalize on that mistake. Otherwise, they'll get away with it, and risk versus reward means nothing if there's no risk. You have to learn how to punish mistakes. You don't need to know all the frame data in the game, but you do need to know what's punishable, and especially what is launch punishable. You know those two things about your opponent, you're good. But here, I'll present you with all the options she has, just so you have all the information you need. And as you get more comfortable, you can learn more details and more specific usages of things beyond just what's necessary. So starting off at 10 frames, she has 1, 2, 2. This is excellent right off the bat. You get 25 damage, but 1, 2, 2, when it makes contact, automatically leaves Lidia in her cat foot stance. This one's called cat foot 2. You're going to have a hard time getting used to the names of stances, so buckle up. You're going to have to get there eventually. 1, 2, 2 on contact. You see her hands are about waist high. That automatically transitions her into stance, and you can also see it's +8. So having this right away gives her an unbeatable mix-up opportunity directly off the punish. If you do 1, 2, 2, and then press 1 + 2, they cannot beat that out. They would get counter hit for a launcher if they tried to do that. So this is already a fantastic 10-frame punisher with options built in afterward. You couldn't ask for much better than that. The only issue, I guess, would be the short range of your jab in some situations. 2-4 is also 10 frames and definitely has better range than her one jab. Pretty good frame advantage on hit and all that. So if you're worried about missing, 2-4 is a little bit better, but 1, 2, 2 is really excellent as a 10-frame punisher. She has an 11 frame in the form of back 1, 2, which is pretty good. Nice advantage and forces them on crouch. That's usually a pretty good situation. But for the most part, I think your 10 frame into a stance mix-up is a little more powerful. The damage is nice, but I think you get so much out of these stances that's worth a priority. But at 11 frames, she can do this to you just to keep it different. 12 frames is forward 2-4. This is a knockdown. A little bit difficult to do. You kind of have to do this fast. I find myself not getting the input sometimes, just doing it casually. You have to press forward 2-4 pretty quickly. But it's a knockdown, it's a wall splat, and it's 12 frames. Those almost every character starts to have these days, so it's pretty important that you get yours. When you're near that wall, you need to be able to start throwing that punish out to get the wall splats. 13 is trivial. It's not worth even mentioning these strings as 13-frame punishers. They're pointless compared to getting a knockdown with this move. Just do this move, and don't worry about 13. However, at 14, we now have this. Forward 1 + 2, 3, 2, 1. This whole string is a natural combo, and at 14 frames, gets you the knockdown, but doesn't wall splat, doesn't break walls. This is just the extra damage. You get something that's exactly 14, this is a pretty good way to do it. But, as we said, if you're near the wall, you definitely want to do forward 2-4 and get your wall splats. So that's at 14 for pure damage out in the open. Pretty good option to get 41 damage from that little thing. That works well. At 15, she has a hop kick. It's a little bit of a different hop kick. You'll notice it's 2 hits. And unlike a character, say Julia, one of her hits is in the air. You can see where it says 70% damage scaling on the left. One of those hits is airborne, so it already affects the potential combo you can do. And this automatically leaves her in the stance. You'll notice she's also in cat foot 2 when this connects. You can't do anything about that. So you have to use that in your combos and learn something different. So it is a 15-frame launcher, but it leads to some of her weaker combos, let's say. It's totally fine. She still gets good damage, but it's kind of like a hop kick that's sort of hindered in a way instead of just being a regular hop kick. But I don't mind it. It's a little bit different in its usage. It's something rather than just getting 95 damage. She still gets good damage, and it just makes you think about it a little bit different. I kind of like the way this character is built in some of those terms. There's some things that are just a little bit different in execution that makes you, approach it differently. I like that. 17 frames is 3-2. This is a natural combo that causes a launcher, but if you can time it just correctly as the foot hits their face, there is a just frame version of this. See, it's doing 24 damage normally, but you get the blue spark version, you get 26 damage. Doesn't affect anything else, hitboxes or stun or anything, it's just 2 damage for free. So once you learn how to time that, you get 2 extra damage, and this is your huge combo. So 24 to 26 damage from your launcher, which does lead to your biggest potential combo, is pretty nice. She can rack up damage with this. And it's 17 frames, so it can punish some things on block, but this is mostly for getting like a clean sidestep and hitting them with that as a whiff punish rather than a block punish. But it can happen, right? There's plenty of things that are 17 on block. Just be aware of them. Don't get this confused with something that's exactly 15. So on to crouch blocking. She has while standing for 2. Which is a little bit better. She gets nice damage, plus 8 frames. Excellent stuff. So it's a while standing 4 and then some. 12 frames, she has full crouch, down forward 2. Look how fast this elbow is. This elbow is just out of nowhere. The knockdown, the wall splat, everything. Just lightning fast mid option there. Does a little bit more damage too, so if you know you got a 12, most lows are going to be 12. There are very few, like just 11s in the game for the most part. Good lows are going to be 12. That works really well. Even better lows that are 13. This move at 13 while standing 1-4 is even more damage, and you still get your knockdown, wall splat, and all that. So this is a better option, but it requires a 13. So if you know exactly which one every low is, you know, some characters might have both. Kazumi, I think, her down back 3 and down back 4. One of them is -12, one of them is -13. If you can remember that and do it appropriately, go for it. Otherwise, you can kind of just stick to that 12. That 12 is pretty damn good when you block any low. That's going to get you a nice reward. While standing 1-4 is a knockdown of 13 frames, or you can do while standing 1-2. Leave them standing, get nice damage, and leave them standing right in front of you for another setup. That's also a good option too. 14 frames, not to be outdone. We have while standing 3-2. Now we're up to 38 damage, and guess what? This is also a wall bounce. 14 frames, bounces off the wall for a partial combo. So that is already massive. If you're anywhere near the wall, a 14 frame launcher that does 38 damage on its own is just massive. That's really good stuff. So excellent Punisher at 14 with a partial combo potential. And then at 15, she has a while standing too, like everyone else. It's not the best combo off of this either, but it's a punish at 15, so you can't knock it. She can also do her hop kick out of full crouch since it is an up input. That works too for 15 frames. As far as whiff punishing goes, when you don't block attacks and you avoid them cleanly, forward 2-4 needs to be ready to come out at a moment's notice. Anytime you see a little flinch, you sidestep in the middle of the string, bang, you pop them with that. Otherwise, if you get a nice, clean, easy whiff, it's 3-2 that you want to have, and you want to learn that just frame timing. You want to be able to just see what they're doing, make a clean sidestep, and react to it with that, and get your blue spark launcher. 3-2 is your ideal whiff punish, but again, at 17, you might not have the chance. So that's why forward 2-4 is there for those clutch situations. If you're farther away from them, forward 3 has excellent range. I mean, if the odds of them missing something out here and you just getting a punish like that, it happens, but it's mostly just people like dancing around and trying to bait you to come in or whatever. That can cover that distance very quickly. Catch them off guard. Otherwise, forward 1+2 is really good for this situation. If they're coming at you and they just happen to miss, bang, one of those catches them really quick. Forward 1+2 is really good for that. Also, forward 2 does pretty much the same thing. It's just she hits you with one punch, and you get your stance out of this. Whenever this makes contact, you automatically go into cat foot stance 1. So think about this as a damage for knockdown, forward both punches, or forward right punch for a little bit less damage, but you get a stance with a guaranteed mix-up afterward. Both are good options when somebody misses out at those like mid-ranges. Punish them with that, and go from there. So those are your fundamental defensive tools, blocking and punishing. Doesn't get any simpler than that. Playing defense goes way beyond that, but as far as the basic tool, being able to punish your opponent's mistakes is one of the first skills. So offensively, one of the biggest tools you have is your stances and the mix-ups that come from those. This is where the character thrives, and the more she can continue these stances and stances into stances, the damage she reaches gets out of control. So they'll spend more time with the actual stances and what to do later on in the gameplay section. But for now, I just want to show you these stances so you have them in your mind. As you think about everything else, you already know what cat foot stance 1 incorporates. So anytime you see it show up, you automatically think about it. I think it helps to have this view of the stances first and then build on top of that with everything else. So there's 4 major stances. They kind of come in pairs. There's a cat foot stance 1 and a cat foot stance 2, which are unfortunately named. I really don't know why they couldn't think of anything else. I really feel like karate dojos have to have different names for this form. That seems kind of crazy to me, but it's what it is. Cat foot stance 1 is forward 3 plus 4. Cat foot stance 2 is back 3 plus 4. You're rarely going to do these out in the open like that. 90% of the time when you use these stances, you're going to use them out of transition from certain moves. Forward, forward 2 transitions into cat foot stance 1 automatically. See her hands go 1 high, 1 low? That's cat foot stance 1. So anytime forward, forward 2 makes contact, you go into that stance automatically at plus 15, which is really good. You have a guaranteed mix up there. They can step, they can duck jab, but there's no universal option. They have to make a read. So anytime you hit with this, there's a guaranteed mix-up in your favor. You have really safe, get-out-of-jail-free solutions. You can take risks if you want, but they could possibly beat out your move, right? Anytime you go for a mix-up, there's potential it backfires. But a lot of these, I think, are very favorable for Lidia. Anytime anything out of this stance is safe on block. All of these options are safe. You could just do whatever you want and basically get away with it. They'd have to be really gutsy to try to duck in the middle of one of these situations. But be warned, that's possible. They might try to duck, trying to get inside your head or whatever, you know? Just be careful with it sometimes. So forward, forward 2 leads directly into cat foot stance 1, whereas down forward 2 leads into cat foot stance 2. You can see this is almost exactly the same punch. It's nearly an identical punch, but this goes into the other cat foot stance. Both of her hands waist high. So this is kind of the way you got to think about it. Their names are confusing. You just sort of think about one path versus the other path. The forward, forward 2 path leads into cat foot 1 and so on. The down forward 2 path leads into cat foot 2 and so on. So cat foot stance 1 from forward 3 plus 4. You have 4 buttons, 1 for each thing that you can do. The 1 is a high that knocks you down like that. Pretty fast, but not your fastest option. The 2 is your fastest option. This little mid strike, counter hit as a launcher. So if they try to interrupt you during this stance, they will get counter hit launched. Forward, forward 2 into stance, and then you press 2, they will get counter hit every single time they try to press a button against that. That's your go-to option, and it's safe on block. So you can just do that all day without really any consequences. If they decided to press a button, you win. Stance into 3 is a natural launcher. This causes a screw attack on normal hit. This isn't the fastest option. They can beat this one out, so be warned, and it's also a high. They could beat it with buttons, and they could duck it, so it's not foolproof. Cat foot stance 4, same thing. They could beat this out with buttons if they want to, just be careful. However, this move by itself is just all kinds of excellent. On block, it's plus 8. That's a plus 8 forced crouch situation. That's just a massive frame trap on block for this move. On hit, you get a spike into the ground and a guaranteed follow-up. 41 damage just for getting hit by that one move. But we're not done yet. Counter hit. This gets you an entire combo. That's just a fantastic move. It doesn't track super well, so if they want to sidestep, that beats it. But again, there's always an answer. So you have to keep it fresh sometimes. But you have 4 really solid options. One that always beats everything, and then some other bigger ones that have strengths and weaknesses. So that's all there is, just one of each button. There's no low out of cat foot stance 1. So they could just stand there all day and not have to do anything, and they would be okay. Except they're going to start getting tired of this. If you have someone that's doing a turtle on you all day, keep doing that. They're going to get tired of being stuck at plus 8, so they have to do something. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to start ducking from now on, right? That's when you go for this. Or I'm going to start sidestepping from now on. That's when you go for that, right? You always have to play a little bit of a mind game when it comes to a mix-up. You can also, from cat foot stance, press backwards and do this little hop away. This is actually kind of nice. It does get you a clean distance away, so if they try to counterattack you, you might be in an even better position to whiff punish what they do. This is a pretty cool option. Just tap back into this swing. On top of that, you can also press back and then 1, and she does that. An unblockable flying punch that comes at her. There's no other option, there's just that. When you do your little back swing, you can do nothing. Or you could do this unblockable one. Kind of cool. An interesting little situation in there. You don't have to go for a mix-up every time. You just sort of back off and do this, see what you got. Your other option is to press forward during stance. You can And see, when you press forward, she shifts her hands again. The opposite hands go low and high. This stance is called Heaven and Earth. This is only accessible from within cat foot stance 1. You can't do this any other way. So cat foot into 2 stances. This is kind of slow. There's a huge difference in timing here. And it turns out most people think you can read and react to this. This is a super duper dangerous stance, but it is reactable. Even when you get hit here, right? You cannot challenge this stance. But if you see her do that, you can challenge it. If you see those hands shift, you can magic 4 or jab and stop her in her tracks from doing this. So you ask, well, what good is that for? It's good for Oki situations. When they're on the ground or at the wall especially, you're standing on top of them, you go right into stance. They can't hit you out of it. They're going to stand up right into this mix-up. And this mix-up is a hard one. Heaven and Earth 1 is just a natural launcher by itself, mid, safe on block. Right? Can't complain about those. Safe mid launchers, good stuff. Heaven and Earth 2, whoops. Heaven and Earth 2 is a low. Pretty darn good low. Nice and plus on hit, does a decent chunk of damage, but counter hit, this low is a launcher. So those are really good options. Counter hit launching low, natural launcher mid. Well, what else do you need? You also have 1+2. Those blue sparks. Plus 14 on block. I'll show you in the actual frame data so you know I'm not kidding here. When they block that, it's a high. They could duck this option. But ducking against the stance mix-ups you're going to teach them is very dangerous. They're going to want to think twice about just plain out ducking. So you can see that 1+2 attack is plus 14 on block. So 14 frame block stun allows them to get hit for free by things like forward 2-4. A knockdown or a wall splat is guaranteed. They can't do anything about it. Once that blue spark has made contact, that move is free. You can also do your forward 1+2 through 2-1 string. At 14 frames, it's a little bit tougher to time it, but that is guaranteed. You can sort of mash it out, but it's a little bit tricky. It's better to just, you have to feel for it. It's not too hard to do. That string is guaranteed. They can't do anything about it. At 14 frames, they are vulnerable to a 14 frame attack. You can also hit them with your rage drive for free. That's a little bit trickier still, but your rage drive, the forward 2+3 rage drive, can also hit them and cause a screw attack and a whole combo just for blocking that. So right away you see how immensely dangerous that stance is. Mid launcher, low counter hit launcher, high launcher on block in some situations, right? Super dangerous. But the trade-off is you can see the hand shift and stop her. When you see that hand shift, you can press jab or magic 4 and you should be able to beat it out. But when she sets you up at the wall or something like that, when you're near the wall and it's stance time, you're going to stand up right into that, you know? They could roll to the side in some cases. It's going to take some getting used to how to exactly trap people with it. But when you use this stuff as Oki situations, there's nothing they can do to avoid it. They have to make a hard read or else it's their ass. So let's take a look at Cat Foot 2, one that's back 3+4. It works fundamentally the same way. You've got a little bit of options out of the stance and you have a secondary stance that's a bit more dangerous. So Cat Foot stance 2 comes out of down forward 2 automatically, or your 1-2-2 punish. They both lead into this stance automatically on hit. The 1-2-2 does not give you as much advantage, so some of the other options they can beat out, but it still remains true that there's one option that cannot lose to buttons. So you're free there. They can't just get out of jail free by pressing jab. They have to make reads. Cat Foot stance 2-1 is this nice little mid knockdown. 2-3-1 is a string that's a wall bounce. I don't know how you're supposed to hit people with this. The only way this makes contact is if that second hit was a counter hit, then it goes. Otherwise, they get blocked. I don't know what you're supposed to do there. I don't know if they just intended that or what, but that move you're never going to hit people with. 2-3-1 as a wall bounce, it's never going to happen. I wouldn't get used to it, but it's there. If you feel like you could get away with it, sure. The hits are all safe. You could just do it and there's no consequences to it. It will kind of track a little bit too if they try sidewalking. So if it tracks and it's safe on block, why not, right? Throw it out sometimes. No big deal. Cat Foot 2-3. This looks just like the forward version of it, except this one is only a screw attack on counter hit. The forward Cat Foot stance when you press 3 is a screw attack on normal hit. The other Cat Foot stance when you press 3 is a screw attack on counter hit. So needless to say, when you're doing these stances and you press 3, get ready for a screw attack combo. That happens quite a lot, right? Sometimes they press a button, sometimes they don't. Doesn't matter to you. All you got to do is, oh, there's my screw attack. Have your combo ready to go. Cat foot stance 2, 4-4 is the only low out of these basic stances. She has a hell sweep low that knocks down, does 30 damage. This is super bad on block. Minus 26 on block. It's terrible. But because this is such a powerful tool, it needs to be that risky. Now there's a low they got to think about in the middle of all these stances, right? They're already thinking about, I don't have to do anything. I'll be okay, until they start getting hit with +8 frame traps. Like, all right, I got to do something. But I don't want to duck. Ducking is too risky. Let me just try, you know, sidewalking or something like that. Now they got to start thinking about ducking. At this point, they have to start thinking about a duck because they don't want to get hit by this too many times either. That's going to get old real fast. So now ducking is in the picture and the whole thing is just wide open. Anything you want to do to mess with them works really well. The last option, she has a fifth one out of this stance, is 1+2. This is the one that can't be beaten by other buttons. If you do this stance or the 1+2, they cannot challenge that. They will get counter hit by it. Nothing you can do there. This one, however, now is going to be -10 on block. This is the only thing out of your base stances that's unsafe on block. But since it comes out of the stance that has a low, and this is the one that it's your go-to for being unbeatable, that makes sense that it's a little bit unsafe too, right? They got to give her a little bit of risk. So this stance is a little bit more versatile than Cat Foot 1 because it has a low, and because it can still stop you just as cleanly. So they added a bit of risk to it. Not so bad. You also can do the backdash by pressing back. And the same unblockable comes out of it by pressing 1. That's the same for both Cat Foot stances. Cat Foot stance 2, when you press forward now, you get a different secondary stance. This is called Pouncing Tiger, Stalking Wolf. PTSW in the notation. And again, you can recognize when she does that, and the same thing applies. You have time to do it. When you connect with this move into stance, you cannot challenge the Cat Foot stance. But if she goes into that, you can challenge it. You just have to be careful. You just have to learn what hits and what doesn't. So when you see that shift, be ready. Because again, this is super duper dangerous. You don't want to let her get away with this. When she's in this, the one attack, that nice big knockdown, well, guess what this is? This is +6 on block, just for no reason. It's a 45 damage knockdown. And on block, +6. Like, how crazy is that, right? Jeez, that's so much. You stand there and you get frame trapped. You move incorrectly, 45 damage. That's a huge move to have in the arsenal. On top of that, there's 2, just a nice chunk of damage and a knockdown flips you over like that. This is a really good, like, utility move. You find yourself in this stance, you don't always have to go all or nothing. This move is good to just use in neutral, as is 3-1. PTSW 3-1 is this little poke stance. Look at that. That's 40 damage on its own. How? That's just a crazy amount of damage. Not to mention the silly range this has. Right? Because the Pouncing Wolf stance takes a step forward, then that 3-1, huge amount of range here to get 40 damage off of it. Those are high damage pokes. There's nothing more to them. They're just pokes, but man, that damage hurts. So to tie it all up together is another low. But you'll notice knocks down on normal hit, and you guessed it, counter hit, this is a launcher. So look at how many dangerous things there are. Crazy amount of danger. Everything is so risky. So that's what I said in the beginning, that the longer she gets to run this stuff on you, the longer the day is going to get for you. You really need to learn defensively how to stop this stuff. And they can see these hand shifts and challenge her at that moment. They got to learn how to do that. But if you set it up correctly at the wall, they're not going to have any way to do anything about that, right? Stuff like that, right? They need to make a good read. They need to tech roll correctly, stand up correctly, whatever it might be. You're setting up the offense for free when you can do this stuff as Oki. Out in the open, secondary stances are risky. First stances are clean. Forward 2 in a stance, no worries. You have the advantage in that situation. Forward 2 in your second stance, watch out. It's their advantage in that situation. So we'll talk about how these work out more later on. I just want you to see what they all do as we go forward, and you learn, okay, well, that would be a good stance to do this, right? I can do this, or I can do that mix-up. Now you have these in the back of your head. 2 cat foot stances, each with their own set of buttons, highs, mids, frame traps, counter hit launchers everywhere, and then secondary stances that are even more deadly. This is the basis of your offense. When you start getting momentum, you start rolling, this is the stuff you want to start rolling out. So you have to have this ready to go, locked and loaded. The only problem is distinguishing which one is which. It takes you a while to get used to which stance you're going to be in when you do this move, or you do this move, or you do the punish. Take you a while to remember, oh shit, that's the low stance, or oh, that's the other one, right? A little bit of confusion, but you'll get there eventually. So that's why I start with this, so you're always thinking about it. Let's take a look now at some of your utility moves. Not necessarily offensive or defensive, but just kind of all around. These are moves that are indicated in your list with the symbols for screw attacks and stuff like that. Just kind of want to recap what all of them are. So again, you have these already in your memory. When it comes time to pull something out, ready to go. You don't have to learn these when it's too late. You already know it. First, I want to talk about Power Crush. She has 2. Down, forward, 3+4. Pretty straightforward. It's a mid. Does some nice damage. This is like -12 on block. That's pretty straightforward. There's nothing else about it. Down back 1+2, however, this is -14 on block. You ask, well, why is that? Because this one is a wall bounce. And you get a mini combo off of that when the situation presents itself. So down back 1+2 if you're anywhere near the wall. Down forward 3+4 if you're not. This will wall splat as well, but it depends on what you need, right? As long as you get used to having the one at disposal correctly, you'll get more damage out of doing it the right way. So 2 Power Crushes are both pretty solid. She doesn't have a high one, she just has 2 mids. That's fine, right? You're taking a risk by doing that sort of thing anyway. Instead, the reason Power Crush exists is so you don't have to make like a read versus mid or low or whatever. It's kind of a get out of jail free. So having risky mids, that's fine. There's no big deal there. Where you want to have mids, however, is homing moves. This character does not. She does not have a mid homing move. She in fact basically has one homing move, which is back 4. This is fine. It's a good move. It's fast. It's like 16 frame startup. It's pretty fast for a good homing move. The only problem is it's a high. It has an extension, back 4-4-4. This is all technically a natural combo. They can't block any of that on hit, which is kind of amazing. However, if they're just standing there and they block this, there is no chance they're not going to block that low, right? They're going to see that coming a mile away. So you can't just throw this out and hope they get hit by it. But if you're feeling lucky, you can roll the dice and get this whole 54 damage. Otherwise, just stick to this. This does 21 damage by itself. That's good enough to teach them to stop sidestepping on you, right? That does the trick. Problem is without a mid, they can sidestep and duck. Or they can start, feigning sidestep and then just start ducking like crazy and you'll be kind of left with nothing to do about it. She has stuff that like this tracks to her left, her down forward 1 and her down forward 3. They track to that side, but nothing that's officially homing that's a mid, so be warned of that. The other variation of this move, down 3-4, it's the same thing. It's the exact same move in animation. In fact, it even has the whole string afterward. But as far as a homing move goes, that's not what you're going to use this for, and honestly, I don't think this move is super great in a vacuum either. It's just, it is what it is. It happens to be the same move as this. It almost feels like that move was an unfinished thought, like there was something else supposed to go in there, but it just never did. So otherwise, back 4 is your one and only go-to homing move, so use it wisely. Be warned, there is no mid there. Let's take a look at screw attacks. There are 15 screw attacks, and there's probably about 12 of them that you're never ever going to use on purpose. They're really overblown with a lot of characters anymore. There's just tons of screw attacks everywhere that you just won't use. There's no reason to ever use them. And some of them you have to even think of a way to use them, and I still have no idea how. The main reason they exist, I guess, is if you happen to catch an opponent in the air, you get a combo from it. You got some extra value to this move. Akuma's doing demon flip, and you happen to catch him with this, boom, screw attack, right? That would be it. You can't really plan for stuff like that. Screw attacks are only applied in combos, and you already know what your combos are, so you're rarely see accidents, right? But it happens. I just want to go over what the list is so you have them all at your disposal. Catfoot 1, 3, and Catfoot 2, 3. Both of them are screw attacks, even though the second one requires a counter hit to do it. On an airborne opponent, they're both screw attacks. 1, 2, 3. This move is a screw attack. That works for, changing up your wall distance. I might use this once in a while. 1, 2, 3 isn't too bad. 1, 2, 4, 4 is a little bit weird, but it still works. If you happen to catch people with that, hooray. 4, 3 is one you're going to use a lot. This is your go-to screw attack. This is probably the most commonly used one, 4, 3. Down forward 4, 3 is almost exactly the same thing. The only difference is it's mid. Sometimes 4, 3 doesn't work late in the combo because it's a high and they drop underneath it. Down forward 4, 3 is a mid and solves that problem for 1 less damage. So you can get used to that. Those you're going to use most of the time. Forward 4, 3, 4. That one, good luck, right? I don't know when you're ever going to do that in a combo on purpose, but it's there. It's good for style points, but it does exist. Down forward 4, 4, same thing. This move on normal hit causes that little launcher state, but on an airborne opponent, it's a screw attack. And I don't know how you're supposed to hit people with that too. That is super slow. I guess if you did like a balcony break and you could hit them with like anything you want on the way down, there's that. So it exists. Just I'm putting it on the list for the sake of completion. That's all. What else we got? Down forward 3+4. This power crush is also a screw attack. Again, good luck. I don't know when you're going to use that, but it's there. Back 4, your homing move, and down 3-4, the low version. Oops. These are both screw attacks for what it's worth. Back 4, you sometimes use, I guess, in close wall splat situations, but not as a screw attack. It's just sometimes it's an okay juggle tool. Up forward 4-4, her hop kick. Causes a screw attack on hit by itself or versus an airborne opponent. Same result, automatically into stance after your screw attack. And last one is sidestep 4. It's a launcher on normal hit, but if they're already airborne, screw attack. So that's all of them. The only one you're ever going to use on purpose is 4-3, and then you'll use that little sequence. That'll be your other go-to screw attack. And that's it. The rest you're not going to do, but here they are. They're in the list. They're in that Google Doc in the description. Go check them out if you need some further reference. Otherwise, just learn these two and you're good. Wall bounces, we talked about earlier. She has a down back 1+2, which is pretty good. Does nice damage. Gets you the wall combo there. She also has while standing 3-2 out of a 14 frame low punish. That's pretty nice. And then we talked about cat foot stance 2-3-1, which you're really only ever going to get in a really, really specific situation. But she does have 3 wall bounces at her disposal, so that's kind of cool. She has several ways to do it that fit slightly different situations. The last special feature I want to talk about are rage mechanics. First off, her rage art down 1+2. It's nothing special. It's a mid. It's the same like anything else. Like 23 frames. It's launch punishable. Cool animation. She charges up and she really lets you have it with that last one. It's pretty cool, but as far as the mechanic goes, there's nothing really noteworthy about it. However, rage drive, she's got 2 of them, and they're both pretty different. Pouncing tiger, stalking wolf. The secondary stance, cat foot 2, into that, right? She has 4, which is that low that knocks down. That low was also a counter hit launcher too, remember? Well, if you have rage and you press 4-2, you get that. You get that knockdown and guaranteed follow-ups from it. So all this really does is just kind of add an extra threat level to the PTSW stance. It's really, really hard to implement this in combos. Like, you can do it. It's just got such a short range, you're very rarely going to get anything out of it, right? That was only a 40 damage combo. Watch what happens if I do it in like a full-length combo. Right? They're too far out of range. They're already missed. So this has very, very little combo applications. At the wall, you might get some more leverage since they can't roll away. That would be more unavoidable, and so ending a combo that gets to the wall, you can get some nice bonus damage. But a combo out in the open, you really can't squeeze that in. They'll be too far away. The range is not good enough for it. So that kind of is exclusive to wall combos in that regard, or you could just use it as part of your mix-up, like we said. Adds a little bit of extra venom to that mix-up. The other rage drive, however, the forward 2+3. This is a souped-up version of our forward 2, which goes into stance, cat stance 1 on hit, remember? Well, this one on hit goes into screw attack automatically. There's no second screw attack. This is the only one that you get. You don't get like a second combo extension. So really, this doesn't alter your combos at all. You don't get like one extra loop out of it. But we mentioned earlier that in situations like Heaven and Earth on block, you can hit that for free. It's a little bit tricky timing, but you can hit him with that for free. It turns that into a combo where it wasn't a combo in the first place, but that's it. This is a 13 or 14 frame screw attack, but not much else from an existing combo. Starts a combo, does not extend one. What's interesting about this, though, is on block, this goes into cat stance 1. It's the only move that she has that goes into a stance on block. All the rest of them require it to hit. This forward 2 on block, nothing. On hit, stance. Well, rage drive is the opposite. On hit, you get a combo, but on block, you get cat foot 1. The difference here now is instead of the normal version being plus 15 into your cat stance, this is plus 27. Plus 27 into that stance, right? I'll put it on the screen again just so you can see it and not have to like constantly think about it. What that does is gives you a free setup into Heaven and Earth. Normally into Heaven and Earth, you can see how she's now -5, right? I told you you can see those hands and react to it. That's because your 15 frame advantage from this is over by the time you shift into stances. Well, if you do this, notice how she's still +7. The huge frame advantage she has is still there after she shifts. So if you block this rage drive, if she goes into heaven and earth, you can no longer beat it out. You have to make a read against one of those 3 dangerous options. And that's kind of a cool little trick to have. Near the end of a round, spending your entire rage bar on one forced mix-up that is like the most dangerous mix-up you could possibly imagine. And it very, very heavily favors Lidia, I think. That's actually very cool and very dangerous. So when you think about that one, get ready to start thinking about that coming at you. Free combo on block. All you do is stand there and block 2 attacks. Now you're getting wall splatted. Super duper dangerous. So I think that's a nice little unusual way to apply a rage drive. This character is full of unusual little twists, like I said. And this is another one I think makes it very interesting. Forward 2+3 rage drive. Got some very cool applications. Okay, so that is your basic defensive fundamental punishment tools, your stances that lead to your best offensive mix-up tools, and a bunch of utility moves in between. Let's put it all together and talk about the character's overall playstyle. For the most part, she runs a fast mix-up game up close. That's where most things come from, and it's where the best damage is done. I mean, that sounds obvious, right? You have to be close to be able to hit people, but this character is very true. When she is directly in your face, that's where the magic happens. Further out, not as simple, but she's good at getting back in. So it's really a stick and move, kind of stay in your face character. But the phrase I like to say is stick and stick, right? Sometimes you want to just poke them and get out of there. With this character, you want to kind of stick them as much as you can. Keep on them. Do not let them breathe until they force you. Once they start getting good at like keeping you off, then maybe back off a little bit and try. Otherwise, you want to stay on them as much as you can. You don't want to give them an inch. Mid-range is not too bad. There's some decent stuff out here, some nice longer range tools, and a lot of moves to get back in with the Fury. So when you do certain attacks like that, you're right back on them in a stance. Perfect. So mid-range is decent, but you'd rather be in close range, so she has the tools to facilitate that. She can get right back on you in a hurry. Defensively, she has some parries, and she's got some evasive moves. Tracking isn't super duper great, so be warned of an opponent who is used to getting pressured a lot. If they are keen at sidestepping in the right moments or they make good ducks, gotta be careful. So you do have parries to try to, you know, bait out their counterattacks. You do have evasion, but those are definitely not the character's strength. They're there just to keep the whole thing honest, right? She can do it, but it's not her strength. So be warned about an opponent who is really good at getting out of pressure mix-up. You're going to have to stick and move a little bit more with that guy. You have sidestep moves, which are also good of your own movement. To be able to just poke somebody and sidestep and then, you know, continue offense, that stuff works pretty good. Having sidestep tools and having a good backdash, pretty good stuff all around. Her movement is above average at best, but it's good enough to facilitate what she does, which is getting right back on you. Smack you with one of these things, stay in your face. Sidestep, stay in your face. That's what she does. And all you really want is to catch a big whiff punish, tag people with one of those. That's all you need. You're either getting counter hits out of your mix-up stances, or you're making them whiff entirely and pop them with something big. But those stance mix-ups are deadly. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it's very momentum-oriented. The longer she can keep doing this stuff and get away with it, the worse it's going to get every time something new pops up. You have to be proactive at stopping this character on defense. And so proactive defense means counter hits, right? There's plenty of ways to deal with stuff. There's always an answer in this game. So let's start with taking a look at her close-range offensive tools. Basic pokes. She has lots and lots of jab options. There's 1-1, there's 1-2-2 we talked about as your basic punisher. There's a 1-2-3 and a 1-2-4-4. All of these are very different, but it's 1-1 you need to pay attention to because it's the only mid. Everything else, 1-2-3, 1-2-3 is a high, 1-2-4 is a low, so they're just going to fuzzy duck, right? Beat all of that stuff. Same thing with 2-1 and 2-4. Oh, 2-4 is actually good too, that's a mid. That's worth noting. The 2-4 has a mid extension, 1-1 has a mid extension. Those are what keep it honest. So 1-2-3 is a high and 1-2-4 is a low. Not totally practical. I wouldn't use these a ton, but they can be out there. You'll see Kazuya has a 1-2-4, Leo has a 1-2-4, and they're useless. They get blocked. The only interesting twist with hers is if you get that third hit on a counter hit, right? You get a free follow up there. Cool. And if they happen to block that last hit, and they try to punish it, 1-2-4-4 will launch them. but only if they punish. If they just stand there, they will not get hit by it. They have to block 1, 2, 4, try to punish it in order for that last hit to catch them. That's such an odd little situation. I wouldn't even bother mentioning it other than just to tell you that it does exist. Once in a blue moon, you might catch somebody trying to punish that, and now they'll know. Other than that, those are your basic jab sequences. 1, 1 is a mid, 2, 4 is a mid, but 1, 2, 2 into stance for free is really what you want to focus on. One of your primary ways into stance, amazing stuff happens from that point forward. Some other good tools you have are forward 3, excellent range, jumps over lows, knockdown, safe on block, mid, wall splat. Like you can't really beat that, right? This is just fantastic stuff. Forward 3 is really, really good. No tracking, however. It's everything else. It's fast, safe, mid, low crush, knockdown. It just doesn't track. That's the only weakness with it. Excellent move otherwise. Down 1 is just a teeny bit slower. This is 19 frames, which is totally fine. But this is +2 on block and +8 on hit, all of which force your opponent to crouch. This is just super duper annoying. You're just not going to get tired of this real fast. +2 force and crouch. Oh, I hate it already. I'm the one that's Lidia and I already hate it. So this is also excellent to keep your opponent super annoyed. Again, 0 tracking. They can sidestep this move very, very easily. So be warned of that. It's the only weakness of these two moves. They are phenomenal pokes, but they don't track. Back 1. It's definitely worth noting because it's 11 frames and this is super fast. Back 1, 2 exists and is a natural combo. Does force them into crouch. That's good stuff all around. But I feel like just doing back 1 and never finishing it really keeps them on their toes. They're going to be expecting that half the time, right? Waiting to punish it and you never deliver it. I think this really keeps that momentum in your favor. You do this and then you switch to something else. You counter hitting with this, whatever it might be. Back 1 has got such a fast tempo built into it. I think it works really well. Back 1 + 2, on the other hand, is the opposite. I think this slows down your tempo. This is like Brian's down 2 or Kazuya's down forward 1. Lifts them up in the ground of that gut punch. Makes them think about what they just did. They see that and they realize they can't do anything for like a full second or two. That's just the complete opposite to slow down that tempo. Now they have to stand there and just respect whatever it is I'm about to do to them. So back 1 to speed things up. Back 1 + 2 to kind of slow things down and set them up hard. And to complement all that is your back 4 homing move. Since we talked about how this is really good and this is really good, but they don't track, you need back 4 to complement that. You absolutely need it. Because they're thinking right away, well, okay, her best tools don't track. Well, you need this to legitimize that, otherwise they will step you to death. And as we mentioned, back 4, 4, 4 is a natural combo if you're feeling super risky. You risk a launch punish for like 30 more damage. I don't know, it's there, but once every like 20 matches, maybe go for that. Unless you you have it, right? You know you're gonna force a sidestep. They've been doing this all day. Every single time you do this, they sidestep. Okay, well now I can go for it because I know I got the setup. Other than that, very, very risky. Speaking of sidestep, she has 2 of her own. This sidestep 2 on block is 0, which is pretty good. And the fact that it's 0 and force crouch is basically plus anyway, right? They can't do their full attacks. They're going to lose if you tried to jab. So sidestep 2 has got a mental frame advantage, as well as sidestep 4 being a natural launcher out of a high. 16 frame high, and it's a launcher. So her sidestep game is also pretty good. So next up, I want to look at a series of moves that all have a mid-high bait to it. Strings that end in a mid or end in a high that you kind of like give a little mini mix-up out of. The first one is forward 4-3. These little can kicks. This isn't the best technique to use. I just want you to be able to see there are tons of these things with different risks and rewards. The fact that this is -10 on block, it's a little bit risky to start just throwing this out by itself, but there are ways around it. If they start punishing this thing, you do the 4 extension, bang, they get counter hit and they get launched. That 3rd hit by itself is a launcher. So they try to punish, boom, you get a launcher. But okay, oh, you're going to do that. I'm just going to start ducking this high. Well, now there is a mid version that'll knock him down, flip him over. So these are a series of moves that have that. A high they want to try and duck, and a mid to back that up. Most of these mids are unsafe. A lot of them have counter hit properties. But if you want to go and take a little bit of a risk, you can get a lot of stuff out of it. But I wouldn't do these all day, every day, because you're putting yourself at risk to get ducked or punished on block. I just want you to see how many of these things there are. And if you have an opponent that wants to try and duck whenever they can, try and sidestep whenever they can, this is how many more things they have to think about. There's like 12 of these moves they're thinking about before we even get to the stances. So forward 4-3-1 is a mid, 4-3-4 is a high. Next up is down forward 1-2, same thing, that's a high. Down forward 1-3 is a mid that knocks them down. Second hit by itself on counter hit, launcher. So again, you can throw these out if you want to mess with people. Just be warned, these mid options are unsafe on block. If you're just doing one hit by itself all the time, eventually you might catch them with that second hit. That's what it's about. Doing these sparingly without giving your opponent time to predict or think about it, and they'll make the wrong decision. The more of layers of this, the more things you have that force that train of thought, the better it'll work out for you. Next up is down forward 3-4. This is a mid. And again, if you catch that counter hit, look what damage you get. You get 65. One more time. 65 damage from that counter hit, down forward 3-4. Even that second hit by itself, you get your follow-up. Huge damage, right? Okay, well, that's a mid, and it's unsafe. But here's what's interesting about it, is this extension is a high. Down forward 3-1-2. She feints into the punches. She doesn't do the kick at all, notice. She doesn't do this. She feints it into punches. Okay, those are good punches that knock them down. Those punches, that's +7 on block. +7! That's just a huge amount. An absolutely huge frame trap. So they do not want to stand there and take that too many times a day. There's so many things. They're getting plus framed here. They're getting plus framed there. They're getting plus framed with this, that, and the other. They want to try to duck this if they can. Down forward 3-1-2 is something they really want to duck. When they see something like that, they're like, okay, I need to get out of it, and that's immediately opens up for this mid, the gut kick, and then that follow-up. They took 40 whatever damage it was just for trying to duck. So these can be really dangerous if they start making bad decisions. Back 2-1 is another set. There's a high. Back 2-3 has got a mid that checks it. This mid has also got a counter hit launcher, like everything in this game does nowadays. This one is safe, though. Back 2-3, that's a safe one. You could just do all day. You get on counter hit, you get both hits. Really good string. So when you're doing the dance and you're poking and you're moving around, you just throw that one out. Sometimes you get the whole thing. You might catch that second one. Counter hit launcher. So this is definitely worth having. It. Back 2-1, I don't know if it's even worth throwing out there just in case they duck, right? Go for the mids, as the mid is safe. You don't need the high to try to force ducks in that particular situation. But you can see how many of these there are to think about already, right? Tons of this stuff. But we're not done. We got a couple more. Back 3-1. This is interesting again. It's a natural combo, nice little chunk of damage. The second hit, counter hit, always has this property, right? Guess what that property is? It's +14. That counter hit is 14 frames of hit stun. So you get follow-ups for free. You can get your 14 frame string, damn it, or you can get your forward 2-4 wall splat. Only on counter hit. When that one is a counter hit by itself, you can get that stuff for free. So okay, that's cool. Again, it's unsafe. It's a mid that's unsafe, so don't just throw this out all day. How do you encourage them to start ducking? Back 3-4. This is a mid-high. These double step kicks, natural combo, but they start seeing, okay, you start with this all day. I'm tired of this crap. I'm going to start ducking. This is an obvious huge high kick. I'm going to start ducking it. Well, that opens them up to the back 3-1, as well as back 3-4 follow-up. Back 3-4 quarter circle 1+2. This is safe. If they try to do something slow after ducking this, you can tag them with that mid, and it's safe on block even if you do. They're not going to be thinking about stepping after this. They're going to try to duck this and blow it up, but this keeps that completely in check. There's no chance they're going to try to sidestep you right there. If they do, then you need to rethink your whole strategy, right? That's what this is about, is reading the opponent, making bad decisions. They start making good decisions like that sidestep, it's going to be a long day. So mix it up better, switch up what you were doing, never do the same thing twice. So back 3-4 and its follow-up is really interesting string to just be able to throw out. They want to start ducking that one in the middle. Back 3-1 covers your bases there. The last one is down forward 4. Just a nice little generic mid poke by itself. This is really good at 15 frames. No harm here. Down forward 4-2, however, not a natural combo, but you get it on counter hit. Cool. Well, that elbow by itself, +1 on block. Right? Everything is +1 on block these days. When you go look in the Google Doc in the description, everything is highlighted in blue that's plus on block. And there's like 15 moves that are highlighted. Frame traps are everywhere. So that's a good one, right? And another plus on block they want to try to duck. Not to mention, if you do down forward 4-4, that's a high launcher, right? This is +6 on block and forces them to crouch. Look at that. +6 force crouch. They are tired of this already. This is super annoying. That's +6. That's +1. I'm going to start ducking. Well, she's got a mid that backs that up. She has this little tumble kick, this back spinning jump kick. Knocks him down. This is -10. Most of these mids, as we said, are unsafe. So that's only fair. As good as the highs are, all you need is a mid to legitimize it. I'm okay if that mid's a little bit risky too. It's cool. This advantage is still really and heavily in my favor, I think. With the huge frame traps and the fact that it's a +6 launcher, man, so much good stuff. So, look at all that. That was how many? A dozen so moves that are just mid versus high. And they want to try to get out of that stuff. They can't just stand there and take it all day. There's too many frame traps. They got to think of something to get out of that. And so it's your job to keep matching that something. So now, let's take a look at lows. We throw lows into the game, and it's just a mix-up party. There's so much this character can do. The lows are not great in and of themselves, but they are definitely good enough to annoy your opponent to the point where they have to start respecting lows and making ducks. And when they start making ducks, you start with the mids, etc., 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 right? Do the dance. Down 3-1, I find really interesting. This is not a natural combo. The low hits, but they block that high. Well, if they block that high, +4. Right? These frame traps are everywhere. So you can kind of think of this as a low that's just like +4 on hit. They just have to block that. Be warned, however, if they're in a crouch situation, they do not have to stand up. Like situation just like that, they will automatically duck that high if they stay down there. So be careful with it. That can be ducked by itself, and you might accidentally put them into a forced crouch situation and get yourself ducked. But nonetheless, have this low that's +4 is pretty cool. Down 3-4 is similar. It's low-high. That doesn't do anything to back it up, and I would probably never do this. I really don't think it's that good, right? If this is going to be +4 on block, all this does is keep them from sidestepping. I don't think you really need it that much. Just do the back 4 by itself to keep them from stepping. Down 3-4 doesn't really fit a good piece of the puzzle. So down 3-1 is situational frame trap out of a low. Down back 2, this is the low she has that crushes highs. This is the only one that crouches. And between this and her generic down 4, these are the only moves that leave her in a full crouch state. So do remember that for later. Down back 2 leaves her crouching. Negative on hit though. This is only -1, so you don't technically get free offense. But you can chance it sometimes. She's got plenty of things like that that'll keep him guessing. Just be careful. -14 on block is kind of bad. -1 on hit is kind of bad, but this is an okay low otherwise. It's decent, it's just not great. Down back 4 is fairly slow. This is 22 frames. That's a little bit slow, in my opinion. But this one is plus on hit. So that's +1, and you do get offense from it at -13 on block, which isn't too bad. The only problem is that's slow. I'd be totally good with this move if it were like 17 frames, not 22. 22 is a bit much for this, to be her only low that's truly plus on hit. I don't know. Well, that's actually not true. Down back 3-2 has got some interesting properties. You do down back 3-2 and it hits, you get that knockdown straight up. That's pretty good, right? As you can see, they block it. Whew, that's a -26. That's a big crumple stun. Don't get that one blocked. But you're doing this, 37 damage in the knockdown, that's pretty good. Turns out this first hit by itself, the down back 3, that's +3 on hit, all on its own. So this is actually a really good low poke at 16 frames. Doing 19 damage also is good, right? 19 damage off of a low is plus on hit, that's good stuff. It's up to you whether you want to take that +3 and, you know, run your offense from there, or just put them on the ground, right? You got both choices there. That's kind of cool. That's an interesting low. It does 2 different jobs. So overall, that's not a huge package of lows. They're good enough. They're good enough that they start getting hit by this hell sweep crap too much. They're going to start ducking whenever you run up, right? And then once they start ducking, once they start making a decision, you make the counter decision and it's on. You start that steamrolling. So let's look at the true mix-up offense. Let's look at what you do with the 2 major stances and their paths, and then her full crouch game, I think, are the 3 sources of your most dangerous offense. The stance names, as I said, are kind of confusing to deal with, but if you just kind of think of them as the forward 2 path and the down forward 2 path, and then split everything in those regards. So what you have in forward 2, this leads into cat foot stance 1. Your frame advantage is +15 here, so you can do whatever you want. There are plenty of options they can beat out with buttons and ones that they can't. So for the most part, 2 is the one that's unbeatable. This move will track, and this move will beat all buttons. So if you're worried about it, Forward, forward 2, into 2. You are totally safe there. It's only -9. You can do that all day. All day, and you have nothing to fear. But you got other choices. The 1, +4. Right? If they're going to stand there and block, they're not going to do anything. Throw that at them, make another +4 on block, right? Frame traps are everywhere. So another +4 on block makes them want to start ducking. That's the way everything works. You have so many frame traps that make them want to do something about it, so you switch it up. Your other two options, the 3 and the 4, are slower. These can be interrupted, but they have good rewards as well, right? 3 is a natural launcher. They get hit by that straight up, natural launcher. Good stuff. But it's a high, and it can be beaten out. The 4 is also a counter hit launcher, but on normal hit, you get this huge knockdown, and on block, it's +6. Excuse me, 8. This is 8. Sorry. That block right there is +8 into force crouch. That's just massive. That's so much hit stun. Like, they're so tired of getting frame trapped already, and we're like halfway done. So, those 4 moves put together. A high that's plus on block, this mid that's plus on block even more, another high that's a launcher, and another mid that they cannot beat out with buttons, right? What are you supposed to do there? What are you supposed to do? They don't have a universal answer. Honestly, I think their best bet would be duck, because there are 2 options that are straight up highs. That's a high, and that's a high. The 1 and 3 are both high. So if they duck, they can launch punish you for both of those. The only thing that's keeping that in check is this 2, which is minimal damage. But this 4, that's 41 damage. Are they scared of 41 damage as much as they are getting launched or counter hit launched or whatever it is? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. So ducking works really well to beat those 2, but if they stop ducking, that very same move that was causing them 41 damage or whatever it was is now causing them +8, right? So it's lose-lose. Sidewalking doesn't work super well. The 1 will track, and so does the 3 for the most part. Everything can happen, right? This game's got some weird side-to-side hitboxes. You miss time a sidestep, you get hit, etc. That's not a guarantee, but 90% of the time, Catfoot 1 tracks and Catfoot 3 tracks. So again, if they want to sidestep, they would beat your 2, or they'd beat your 4, for example. Actually, the 2 tracks pretty well, honestly. 1, 2, and 3 all track pretty well. So the only reason they would want to sidestep is if they think 4 is coming. Because 4 is the frame trap on block, 41 damage on hit, counter hit launcher on button. So the only way around that one is to step. So maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe that's the best answer. 4 is the most universal threat, and it loses to sidestep. So maybe they start thinking sidestep every time this lands. So you got options to back that up. Needless to say, if you want to get started, forward 2 is a good bet overall. You're taking almost no risk. They can't beat it with buttons. They can't beat it with stepping. Just do that, and you'll be okay. Eventually, you get comfortable with, what are my options? What are my options? You don't have time to think out in a battle. You got to know what your options are. And little by little, okay, I'm going to start doing the 1. All right, I'm going to start doing the 1. Okay, they're going to start ducking that. Let me switch it up, right? So you have to kind of build on it, piece by piece. So 2 beats everything. 1 is a frame trap. 4 is a frame trap. 3 is a launcher. So you can kind of sit there and practice against Lidia and see which ones duck, which ones track. But for the most part, there is no answer. Everything has its own answer, but there's nothing universal. They can duck jab almost all. If they duck jab, it beats the 1, it beats the 3, and it beats the 4. But if they try to duck jab against the 2, they get launched, right? So is that worth it? Is risking a whole combo worth stopping the other 3 options? I don't know. So you kind of have to get familiar with each one and how much you want to leverage your own risk against pressuring them. And that comes down to thinking what your opponent might do. If you think they're a sidestepper, then you use your 3 or you use your 2. If you think they're a masher, then you use your 2, whatever it might be. So on top of that, now we have Heaven and Earth. Heaven and Earth is the stance extension, which, as we mentioned in the beginning, out in the open can be beaten. Even though they cannot challenge this stance without getting blown up potentially, they can challenge that. When they see the hand switch, they can challenge it. There's time enough. This transition is 20 frames, and from the stance, her fastest attacks are 16. So if you saw that hand that you can hit your magic 4, or you can jab, and it will beat her. She can't beat that, right? She doesn't have enough frame advantage to guarantee the double stance unless it's like Oki situation where they're standing up right into it, or she uses the rage drive to get to this point. That rage drive on block has sufficient frame advantage where heaven and earth mix-ups are guaranteed. Otherwise, out in the open, a defensive player can beat heaven and earth, but look at how many things we've already talked about. Duck this, don't duck that, press a button, avoid this, don't worry about that, frame trap, frame trap, frame trap. This is number like 37 on the list of things to have to think about, right? Odds are, though, this one is so dangerous, that's something they're going to train against first. How do I beat heaven and earth? How do I beat heaven and earth? So they might be ready for that. Be warned. And if they're not ready for this, party time. If they stand there and they let you go to heaven and earth, it is party time. Like 1999 party time. Because this stance is so dangerous. Safe mid launcher. Boom, right away. Low, plus on hit, counter hit launcher. Already, we're getting hella dangerous. And then we have a high that on block is a guaranteed hit. You get hit if you block this move. Crazy stuff. You can get rage drived if you block this move. You can get wall splatted if you block this move. Stakes are super duper high. So obviously that's what you want, right? You want to put him in heaven earth as much as you can. But you really can't. You need wall Oki or a good situation in order to be able to do that. You could do like combo resets, right? You could just kind of do, you know, combo stuff and then like be right on top of them with stance mix-ups. Instead of like hitting them after the screw attack, for example, you could just kind of do stance stuff and then right there, you know, that'll trap them. Stuff like that could work really, really well, but you're sacrificing some damage to do it, which I think is okay. The risk you, or the reward you get from these stances is crazy high. And I think coughing up 10 damage is worth it. And at the wall, I think your situation is going to be a little bit easier. Just keep them from tech rolling, and you'll keep them trapped all day. It's going to get super nasty. So onto the other path, the down forward 2 path, which leads into cat foot 2. Again, same paradigm applies. The same situation works. 1-2-2, your Punisher also leads in the stance directly with slightly less frame advantage. This is +8 into stance, whereas down forward 2 is +12 into stance. The only thing that changes is when you do the 1-2-2 version of it, now your 1 and the low attack can be duck jabbed. That's it. Whereas if you do the down forward 2 version, they cannot duck jab those other 2 options. Needless to say, there's an option that beats everything no matter what. If you do 1+2, that beats all buttons. It beats all buttons, and it tracks to her left. So that's a universal get out of jail free. Same as doing forward 2 into 2. You can do that all day and get away with it until you're comfortable with going further. With this stance, you can do down forward 2, 1+2 all day and get away with it. And you get that counter hit 57. You don't even need a combo. You get 57 if they try to press buttons against that. Just for one simple hit. Really, really strong. So that one is -10 on block. If you're going to do that all day, that is -10 on block. Because I think the stakes are a little bit higher in this stance. They're a little bit higher because there is a low. But let's just go from the top real quick. Down forward 2 into 1. Nothing fancy here. This is just a mid that knocks you down. It's kind of slow, but it's safe. Nothing ridiculous there. 2-3-1 sucks. This is the wall bounce that you're never going to hit people with. It's fast and it tracks. But even if you get a counter hit, doesn't matter. The counter hit does not get you the whole string. So like that's kind of just a one-off. You could just do the 2 jab, honestly. 2 jab is fine. That's really, I think, a better option out of that rather than going for the whole string and coming up -7. You're still safe, but you're giving up your turn, I guess. Just do down forward 2 into jab, and forget the wall bounce exists. Down forward 2 into 3. This is a counter hit launcher. On counter hit, you get a screw attack. And as we mentioned, when you do the other cat stance, 3 is a natural screw attack. So no matter which one you're doing, which path you take, when you're into your first stance and you press 3, get ready for a screw attack. That's very likely to happen. And sometimes you'll just get that by itself, no screw attack. No big deal, you're good. Keep at it. But anytime you press 3 in a stance, get ready for a screw attack. That happens a lot. In this case, however, this backward stance, this one is fast. This one is 13 frames. They can't magic 4 you out of that one, whereas the front one is very slow. The one that's a natural launcher out of cat foot 1, that one is slow. The counter hit launcher out of cat foot 2 is hella fast. So these are both pretty likely to result in a screw attack. Be aware of that. And then 4-4 is the low. 4-4 is what makes this one a little bit spicier than cat foot 1, and I think that's why your get out of jail free card is now a teeny bit unsafe, and your low is hella unsafe, because now it's so much more dangerous. Now they got to consider ducking a lot. Anytime they see this stance, they got to consider ducking. And what's good for Lidia is down forward 2 into that stance and forward 2 into that stance. They look almost identical until it's too late. Right? Look how fast her hand transition is here. Right? Her hand is only up for the briefest of seconds. And in this one, her hands are only paused for the briefest of seconds. That's impossible to read. You're not going to be able to tell the difference. And the fact that down forward 2 and forward 2 look almost identical. You are not going to be able to tell which stance you're in, let alone what she might do. So needless to say, they have to fear this low. Even if you're doing forward 2 where there is no low, they have to fear a low because they can't tell that it wasn't down forward 2, right? They have to respect that low. So they're respecting that low in their brain. They are going to be slower to react to everything else. So you've got really fast options out of this stance too that lead to good counter hits. Now you got a low that's really dangerous. That's going to make it twice as volatile for them to make good reads against you. The secondary stance in this case, Pouncing Tiger or Stalking Wolf. Not quite as good as Heaven and Earth in my opinion, but it deals simpler damage, I think, if you want to talk about it that way. You don't have to go all or nothing with this one. There's only one launcher. The low is a counter hit launcher. That's it. There's no other big launches, but there's plenty of damage to be had. The one, that does 45 damage. Look at that. 45 damage straight up. That's just crazy. Not to mention it's +6 on block. The mid is +6 on block. So they just stand there, +6 or 45 damage. Take your pick. Well, she has another mid in the form of this 2. This nice little 2 uppercut does a chunk of damage and flips him over. You get a safe knockdown. That's only -7 on block, and you get a flip over knockdown from a mid. That's really good. A mid is fast too. This kind of comes right on and bang. 3-1 is also mid and does 40 damage. Safe on block. Mid, safe, 40 damage. This is just nuts how powerful some of these things are. But look at the range that covers. She can be all the way back here into Cat 2. And since Pouncing Tiger takes a step forward, then that 3-1, look at the range she covers. From back here, bang, and now she's on you. 40 damage, frame advantage and all that. And then there's the low. The low that knocks you down on any hit, let alone on counter hit, launches your ass. This is just absurdly dangerous. Stuff she does is nuts. But again, we talked about how you can recognize these hand transitions out in the open. We got to learn to recognize that. You can't jab like you can versus Heaven and Earth, because that one will beat your jab. If you recognize the stance hands right there, and you press jab or a high magic 4 that's like 10 or 11 frames or whatever, the one will beat you, and you'll get hit for your 45 damage. So you got to kind of go for a fast mid, do like your down forward one or something like that. Just be careful. So they can learn how to beat this stance out in the open, but during Oki, at the wall, whatever, they're going to stand up right into this thing, or they're going to get hit by another low and start over, right? Hit them with that low, go right into stance, mix up, etc., etc. Never stop. I said you talked about stick and move, stick and move. This character, you want to stick and stick until they make you do otherwise. So the other stance path works pretty much the same. There's a get out of jail free card, so to speak. There's a lot of other counter hit launchers and frame traps, and now there's a low on the table. The only stance that doesn't have a direct frame trap has a low, but the secondary stance has both, a low and a frame trap. So it's just nuts what you can do to people if they let you. So you got to take away the situations where they can do anything about it, and now you're in control again. So the last mix-up situation I want to talk about is full crouch. She doesn't have a lot of ways to do this. We talked about in the lows how down 4, generic down 4, and her down back 2, pretty much the only moves that leave her in full crouch. But from full crouch, look at what you can do. 4-2 does nice damage, +8 on hit, 11 frames. She has while standing 1-2, nice damage, +6 on hit at 13 frames. While standing 1-4, even better damage, plus a knockdown at 13 frames. Oh, while standing 3-2, even better damage, a knockdown and a wall bounce at 14 frames. We're not done yet. We got full crouch, down forward 2. We got a 12 frame elbow that knocks down and wall splats. Look at the sheer carnage she unleashes from while standing mids. Like, okay, well, every time she crouches, obviously she's going to stand right back up. If I ever see her just duck in front of me, obviously she's going to go for that. Well, no, she's not. She has that. Full crouch, down forward 3. This really ties the room together. This makes the whole full crouch situation ultra deadly, in my opinion. Because now you're going to be thinking about that. Same thing with Kunimitsu. You're thinking about that dumb sweep that trips you, that guarantees that follow-up afterward. That's what's on your mind now. Oh man, she's going to do this stupid low. I'm going to get knocked down again. So as soon as you start thinking about, okay, I'm going to duck. No, you're not. You're going to get mid. So this is a tiny little compact situation, but I think the potential here is huge. I think the damage she can do just from, even if she wants to stay like safer, right? You have to duck. What's going to make you duck right there, right? While standing 1-4 is a risk, and it's not safe. But while standing 1-2, they're not going to duck against that. Forget about it. If they do duck, I'll just chalk that up to being random and do it again. While standing 3-2 is only, what, like minus 12, minus 13? And it's a wall bounce? Psh, I'm not worried about that. I'm going to do it. I don't even care. And I have this low to make it all honest. So, man, that's just a simple situation could be that results in some huge damage. No finesse, no setting up needed for that, other than being able to go into crouch, right? You do something like this, and then just crouch their counterattack, you're ready to party. So, I think that's the bulk of mix-up that this character is capable of. Your stances lead to just untold damage once you can set them up properly. You got to learn how to back yourself up. If you have an opponent that's good at sidestepping, you got to learn what tracks. You have an opponent that wants to mash their way out, you got to learn what beats mashing. And those are all written this way in the notes in the description. It'll say tracks, or it'll say loses to duck jabs, or it'll say beats all buttons, stuff like that. Those are written down. So if you want to just go look at it and help your brain absorb that information visually, I think that can help a long way too. You just have to get used to that notation. That notation is a problem. Catfoot 1, Catfoot 2, I think is really still holding me back a week later, you know, from learning all this stuff cleanly. So offensively, this character is a train wreck coming right at you. The jab series is interesting. She's got enough to work with. She's got good basic pokes that are wide range, frame traps, don't track, but she's got one homing move. That's really important to remember. Some of her really good stuff does not track at all. Some of these like mid-high mix-up things do not track. You need back 4 to keep all of that stuff legit. And back 4 is a good homing move, other than the fact that it's a high. So once you have that in play, your forward 3 does mileage. Your down 1 gets a ton of mileage. All of these mid-high, mid-mid strings, all of these keep them guessing, keep them guessing. And then your stances. You're sitting out here, and anytime you see them do something, forward, forward 2, stance, right? Anytime they're out here, forward, forward 2, stance. That's what you want. Getting into this stance is key. You're watching for any 10-frame punish. 1, 2, 2, stance. Anytime they do anything, 1, 2, 2, stance. You want to keep on them all day with that stuff. And if you're not in stances, since that generally requires them to get hit, that's when you're using your poke stuff. Your mid-high strings, your mid-mid strings, whatever. Fishing for the occasional counter hit on stuff like that. You're using the basic poking game until you have an opportunity to go to your stance game. That's what it's about. Stick and move, stay fluid, move around the field a lot, but you want to stick and then stick them again. That's the name of the game. So let's talk about some defensive options. Not a super strength of the character, but totally good enough. She's honestly good enough at defense. She has above average defensive tools. They're just not the best tools at that job. She'd rather be punching you instead. As far as whiff punishing goes, if you're trying to back off, right, they're keeping you out. They're doing a good job of avoiding mix-ups and keeping you out, right? So maybe you'll stay out for a little bit. Make them make the first move. You got forward 2-4 on deck to whiff punish everything. Forward 1+2, 3-2-1 is nice. They hate getting hit by that. Like, oh man, I feel stupid when she hits me with that whole thing. Hop kick is pretty good for the quick little whiff punishing, obviously. Anytime they're in range, hop kicks are good. Quick little sidestep, boom. But 3-2 is really what you want. That's your go-to whiff punisher. Don't be surprised if this comes up short. It looks like it's rangy, but you can see it's kind of not, right? It's a little deceptively stubby. So you need to be in like a decent range, but when you're doing the dance or whatever it is, you're poking and you're moving, your sidestep, right there you got them. That's what you need. 3-2 is your whiff punisher. So if they make those mistakes, you better be ready with your whiff punishers. And if they do it from further out, forward, forward 2. That's your long range whiff punisher right into stance. We're partying again. The homing move, also defensively, you got to remember, this is your only way to stop them from moving around you. They're going to jab, jab, and sidestep, trying to bait out your linear shit. Well, this is how you stop that. Back 4, indispensable, because it's our only homing move. So it's fast, and you need it to be fast, because this has a lot of heavy lifting to do. Evasive moves can be good on defense. Things like up, back 1. This takes a healthy sidestep to her right, and then knocks him down. It's minus 12 on block, but it's not a huge deal. You get damage and a knockdown. I'm okay with 12. This is super duper evasive, but I don't think it's anywhere near Hwarong. His back 1, that move will just do laps around the moon, man, I tell you what. Fang and Jin have their up forward 2 where they step and then pop you. I think those are probably a little bit better than this. This one is better than, say, Kazumi's and Lily's version. It's just right in the middle. It's a pretty good move. It's evasive and it knocks them down. So that's worth noting. If they're coming at you, you can just whoop off to the side and get them. If they're going to come at you with lows, they're trying to wake you up with lows, you have up forward 3. That hops over lows. And on counter hit, you get a little ground pop. Same with your hop kick. Your hop kick beats lows. Boom. And remember, from the poking section, your forward 3 also beats lows. So these are some nice little defensive tools on their own. You can use this to kind of like keep them out, and this is going to, you know, keep them thinking twice about lows. If you're using these tools to keep them out, they're going to realize they can't just come at you in down 4. That can be important sometimes, right? If they just want to come at you down 4 and then retreat again, this is going to shut the door on that pretty quickly. So that's evasion of moves and jumping over some lows. Let's talk about parries. Down forward 1+2. This little elbow strike, this parries right punches automatically, and when it does, you press 2. I'll just show it to you in the move list since it's already displayed. Down forward 1+2. It changes the move. When it parries, it just kind of like switches out the animation real quick. She spins faster. So once you see it absorb their right punch, you press 2 to get your follow-up. Otherwise, you just get that one hit, right? You can do that hit all on its own. It's a good move still. But when it does parry a right punch, be ready to smack that 2 button. Look what you get. 53 damage. Just from using this move as a defensive tool, if it happens to catch a right punch and you get that follow-up, that's a grip of damage. She has the same thing built into down back 3+4. This does the same thing versus lows. Good kick all on its own. It's a little bit slow, but if it eats up a low, you get a follow by pressing 1. So take a look at that right here. Pop. You see that animation? You press 1, then she kicks them and then does a follow-up. 43 damage versus any low. Obviously probably doesn't work on swords. Probably doesn't work on Fang's headbutt. Like, I know this one doesn't work on elbows, so it's the general parry rules for the most part. Those are pretty good. To have a move that's just good all around, and if it does happen to eat up a low, you get 40 damage off that low. That's pretty good. That qualifies as good defense in my book. These couple moves that have some excellent defensive properties built in, you can use them to keep yourself safe. The last one is the generic parry. She has a basic parry with back left throw or back plus right throw. This one, however, you do have to input. It's not like a Paul or Nina classic reversal. You have to parry, bang, and then you press 2-1-2 and hit him with that 40 damage. It kind of works the same, right? It's always 40 damage. It always does the same result. You just have to do the input. It's not automatic. You have to press the buttons to make the magic happen. And again, this follows elbow and headbutt rules and stuff like that. But it only works on punches. This is only a punch parry. So mid kicks, high kicks, she's got nothing against it. She has to switch to power crush as her other defensive option. So right, you have no way to predict if your opponent's going to come at you with a punch or a kick. No way. But if you're doing this stuff, right, and you might happen to catch the punch, good for you. Otherwise, if you're trying to use a move to get yourself out of trouble and bail you out, you have power crushes. Down forward, 3+4, and down back 1+2. A little bit riskier at the cost of a wall bounce. So that's your evasion and your built-in defensive moves. Not great. Couple moves that go over lows. Moves that can kind of pop you out to the side real quick. Moves with built-in parries, and then power crushes. That's enough to get you out of trouble, to get you out of getting pressured at least one time, and then go back to your game. If you continually find yourself getting in pressure like that, you need to start looking at sidestepping more. You need to start looking at keeping them away from you more with mix-ups, right? Keep them frame trapped. Don't give them the opportunity to attack you. So if that's not your game, if you want to try to flip it back on them even faster, you don't have to worry about playing defense. You look at counter hits. You look at counter hits that can stuff their approach. And this is a decent enough realm for this character. She doesn't have a ton of stuff here. A lot of her counter hits result from the middle of setups and mix-ups, which has some startup time. If you're talking about counter hits to just like stuff their approach, Magic 4 is just about the best one that you have. 4-2 leads to a different combo than 4-3. See, 4-3 causes the screw attack right away. The combo video linked in the description shows you both of these, and it's easy enough to distinguish. You can throw both of these out if they're coming at you, and like, all right, I'm going to pop them with my Magic 4. There you go. They do different combos, but be warned, they could duck this high, and they could punish this mid at -10. It's not a free Magic 4, and it's only 13 frames of startup, so it's a Magic 4, but it's not the best. But it's good enough, and it has some variety to it, which I also respect. A different twist on the character. Couple different ways to do a Magic 4 combo that's a little bit unconventional, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm glad that it's something different. It's not an easy Magic 4, and it's not a super difficult one either. It's just something different, which is what we need. So when you're trying to counter hit them, you know they're coming at you. That's how you stuff them for the most part, your Magic 4. Back 2-3 is also very good. Just because this is safe, if you catch the counter hit, you get your little 33 damage. If you get that second hit by itself on the counter hit, you get a whole combo out of it. Like that. So that's worth just throwing out in the weird random timing situations, the get out of jail free card. This is a 13 frame startup. So back 2-3 at 13 frames is pretty good to throw out a counter hit to be totally safe. And you might get a combo if they press buttons at just the wrong window. If they try to like mix up your timing or whatever. There's no reason not to go for that one as far as counter hit self-defense. That works really good. Down forward 3+4. Or excuse me. Down forward 3-4. This one, the 2-hit version. This is pretty good too. That's not safe on block, but in counter hit, you get that whole thing and the follow-up. You get 65 damage if that lands on a counter hit. Or you get forward two into stance and start doing that stuff. That's maybe the better option overall in these knockdowns, is to go forward 2, right? And get that kind of stuff for free. So down forward 3-4 is a nice little get off me tool. Just be warned, if you were wrong, they can punish you for it. But man, what you get off of that is pretty good. So that's second place behind back 2-3. Back 2-3 is safe. Down forward 3-4 is not, but the rewards are huge if you get that counter hit. Otherwise, you could use a quick cat stance, right? This isn't that slow. If they're approaching and they're attacking you, you can kind of throw that out real quick and get counter hits. Catfoot 2 isn't bad. You can just sort of do that real quick in self-defense mode if you want to. Not like right here, but like out here, you're trying to bait them to come at you. You can kind of do that and stuff them. The fact that this takes a step forward can really halt their approach, right? If they're out here and they want to do like some forward 4 type of stuff, right? You can just do that. You can do Cat 2 and cover that distance before they get to you. That's a big possibility. Catfoot 4 is much slower, harder to throw that one out. Same with doing all your heaven and earth stuff. You are not going to have time to do this stuff defensively to fish for counter hits. Those are more setup counter hits, and here we're looking at defensive counter hits. So Cat Stance 2 I think qualifies, but that's just about it. Down forward 2. Down forward 2 on counter hit has its own knockdown, and you can just press 1. So instead of going into stance, you don't get a stance mix-up necessarily. On your counter hit, you get that. So that's actually kind of good too. That's a nice get-off-me tool. And if they stopped and just didn't get hit, or they got hit normally, then you get your stance from there. But if they got counter hit, easy 41 damage. So down forward 2 is kind of underrated in that regard. That's kind of it though. Catfoot 2 stance options are generally not as quick. They feel like they're a little bit slower to come out. Even though that's 13 frames, that feels quicker to me. Catfoot 1 into 2 feels quicker. That's the one I like as a self-defense tool out of her stances. But again, you're just as well to do Magic 4 if you want, right? You can do that and take a teeny bit of risk and get the same result. But Cat Stance 2 isn't too bad in my book. I kind of like that one. Down forward 3-4 is simple and effective, risk reward. Not to mention, there are tons of little other counter hits if you just want to do any stuff, right? You can do all kinds of things. Whatever you feel like it, just start throwing out strings to defend yourself, whatever it might be. You'll catch some counter hits, right? Down forward 4-2. You catch that counter hit, boom, there's damage. There's lots of counter hit follow-ups. But as far as defend yourself counter hits, there's Magic 4, back 2-3, a riskier version, and down forward 3-4, and Cat Stance 2. Those are the bulk. Down forward 2. Down forward 2 is another good one. That's it. So 5 good defend yourself counter hits. I think that's about it. So the last thing to really talk about is at mid-range, when you are out here kind of playing defense, you want to get back in. If you think they're coming at you, sure, defend yourself with one of these things. Right? That's good. But if they're not, if they're just trying to play the waiting game too, you want to be the first one to get back on them. And running 1 is good for that. Running 1 does a nice chunk of damage, and you get both follow-up options. Right? You can do forward 2 into your stances from that move as well. Running 1 is good, but it's a high. It's totally fine, right? I mean, every character has some kind of plus frame running move or whatever. That's fine, you get damage. But forward 2, I think, is even better. Because it covers that ground, and if it makes contact, you're right into stance. If it doesn't make contact, it's only -2 on block. That's such a good move. So mid-range, when the name of the game is get back in there, forward 2 is your #1 way to do so. Right in your stance, mix up territory, let's go. Forward 3 is a launcher. If you think you can kind of just like catch them by surprise with that, it's -14 on block, and it's not really going to push back. You're in trouble if they do block this, but you might be able to just catch them, you know, breathing for a second and get a launch for yourself. It's worth a shot once in a while. Forward 4 gets you in with a nice mid kick, risk-free. There's no problems with this thing. It's safe on block, nice mid kick. But if you switch it up, if you do forward 4 to 3, that's a natural launcher. That little misstep timing might just fake them out enough to get caught by that and get launched. Forward 4-3. Guess what also this is? +8 on block. Right? As if we weren't done with that. That move is +8 on block, and it's a natural launcher. So when it comes to approaching, that's a good start too. Just remember, this is slow. That little feint takes some time, and if they're going to be aggressive about defending themselves, you might want to be careful. You might want to switch to that forward 2, since it's much faster. Last option is forward 3 +4. This is kind of cool. This is safe, knocks them down, jumps over lows. If they don't tech roll, you get the same knockdown follow-up like that. If they do tech roll, it's fine. But mid-range, forward 2, I think, is your best overall tool, because that gets you right back on them, and if it hits, you're in stance party town. Running 1 is also decent, because it just feels good to hit people with those most of the time. I think that's it. I mean, I think that covers all of it. We looked at your stances, the deadly potential that's in there, and how they have so much to think about on a minute-to-minute basis that they're not going to make a good decision against everything. The more you mix it up, the more you pepper in that low, or you hit them with frame trap after frame trap after frame trap, you're going to make them panic. You're going to make them start sidewalking or start ducking or whatever it is. And once you recognize that opponent tendency, you feast on it. You start doing whatever beats that, and they have to go back to ground zero. And in a lot of these situations, I think Lidia is in control. The risk she faces from these is fairly minimal. Yeah, if they sidestep the wrong thing on a stance, they can hop kick you, sure. But you can't live your life in fear of that. You just do something else next time. You switch up to the stance option that tracks. Do your basic, you know, down forward 2, that, because that tracks or whatever, you know? You've got plenty of options to counter their counter, you know what I mean? I know that you know that I know. I think Lidia comes out on top of that situation a lot with her mix-ups, and they are so dangerous that even if she doesn't, when she does get one, the rewards are huge. She could lose 2 for every one that she wins, right? With how much you get from it. And then at the wall, the Oki situation is so dangerous. I think this character only needs to crack you a couple of times, and then she can just do whatever. You know, she's got room to spare. So that covers it all. That's your stances, your punishers, your evasion, your gameplay style, what you do up close, what you do at mid-range. That's about everything I could think of. Obviously, there's a lot of nuances in the game. A lot of it is reading your opponent. A lot of them is realizing, oh, every time I hit them with this, I could go for that, and they don't react well, right? Stuff like that. You just have to learn on your own. So when you're sitting in practice mode, turn on your frame data and realize, oh yeah, I forgot that was +4. Or, oh wow, I didn't realize that was safe, right? That stuff can really help. And all of that is written in the notes in the description. There's a link to a Google Doc that has 14 pages. All the details, everything I said in this video, the list of the stances, their frame data, their properties, all that stuff is written down for your reference. So, I hope this was a pretty good starter for learning this new character. Seems straightforward. She moves in like clean, straight lines, but there's a lot of nuance here. So it's going to take a while to get used to it. So hopefully this was enough to get the ball rolling, get you out in some matches, and start having fun. Because once you realize, oh man, that was really cool how I hit him with that, or that feels really good to land this setup. It really goes. That's when you want to learn more and you want to keep going. You want, okay, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? And you continue to learn. That's what makes Tekken fun. So good luck with all of that. Maybe we'll see you out there one of these days. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. So click on the like and subscribe and the notification bell and all that stuff down below. And whenever more stuff rolls around, I will see you there. Have fun. Later.